And then let's see. Is it? Yes, I think we're live. Great. So hello, everyone. My name is Mimin Nguyen. I'm a PhD fellow and doctoral research at Imperial College London in the Dyson School of Design Engineering within the Faculty of Engineering at Imperial. And I'll be hosting this talk today. That is within the series called Future in Blockchain. And we are hosted by Mana Lab today and Near Foundation, which are the main sponsors. So for those of you who don't know, Mana Lab is our research group on future of work and blockchain at the Dyson School of Design Engineering. And together with the researchers at Imperial College London and ManaCert, we will be working on developing scientific research on how the blockchain technology will affect leadership, organizations, and the future of work. Just to give you some background, you might saw that even already in the event description, McKinsey expert estimates that by 2030, 375 million employees worldwide will have to retrain, and 70% of today's learners will work in professions that have not yet arisen. And I can give my own example of that. I have been trained as a data scientist, coding in SQL and SAS. I don't think nowadays there's many left. Of course, a lot of my colleagues has moved into Python, becoming, actually, at that time, we didn't even call it data science. We called it quantitative methods in econometrics and information systems, something very complicated. And nowadays we can see there's some majors called data science, and moreover, we're all moving into more sophisticated tools like machine learning to enhance these activities. So I would never know what I would be doing when I was studying, and my role right now, exactly as they estimated, didn't exist before. And it's quite exciting, it's quite challenging, but I think we all, the only thing that we have to do is just prepare ourselves to what is going to come. So in a context where skills in blockchain are becoming quite essential, and considering the fact that UK government announced a few weeks ago their plans for UK to become the global hub for crypto, we would like to just address this arising challenge. And the series of talks will introduce you to the underlying concepts behind the blockchain technology, and we'll try to also discuss how to start a career in the space. And we're going to have today some talks about blockchain, wallets, protocols. We'll have a hands-on session setting up a wallet. Hopefully some of you will get your first NFT. And I just wanted to get a disclaimer here. It's all for free, and we're not giving any financial advice. In this case, this is just a fun NFT as a proof of attendance. So you get to just play around and see how is it to have a blockchain wallet, etc. We're having today Lucas Verra with me. He's founder and CEO of POAP France, and he actually will be running the session with you. And we also were supposed to have Ian Rodgers, fingers crossed, he'll join us in 20 minutes. He got caught last minute into a board meeting. So this is the price I have to pay when I'm getting a chief experience officer from Ledger. So let's see if he get out from the meeting. But if not, I'll do my best to bring him back, of course, one day. It's just very nice for him to also agree to join us at quite late time in Paris. But yeah, fingers crossed the meeting goes well. He can join us in 20 minutes. So yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here with us, Lucas. Let's start. We have similar sessions before at Central St. Martin's with our students, and what I noticed after literally hosting maybe 3-4 talks, that not many people even know what is Web3. And some stories from Imperial. I think I brought a blockchain investors to one of our classes, and I think I heard someone said that blockchain is a Ponzi scheme. So I think let's clear the air and just explain. Yeah, I mean, start from the very, very basic. I hope some of our students would really appreciate that. Lucas, how was your journey as a person, like, moving actually from Web 2 to Web 3? And then, by the way, explaining what is Web 3.
Hi, everybody. So, thank you for having us here. First of all, I excuse myself for being in a Paris cafe. I just landed from Italy and I couldn't make it to the office. Hopefully, it is as good looking as I'm seeing Paris. You can see Paris behind me. But my story is rather simple. I was always interested in in the web in general, Web 1, Web 2, and now Web 3. Um, I am an engineer, an industrial engineer, but yeah, I always started with digital aspects of it, CRMs, databases, the commercial aspect, the web based, and how to create experiences with a digital touch, right? Where you can databases remember who you are, some databases remember where you are, and you can build some form of history that is not written on books, but it's written digitally. Why? I don't know. Maybe because I tend to lose a lot of the stuff that I have with me, so only some databases keep help me keep some form of my life, being that the emails, the phone numbers, the SMS, what I have on my phone, and now Web3 and the blockchain. So yes, basically I started being curious and doing digital since the beginning, and that's what I tend to do now, to be on the frontier of what some people consider that Web3 is the new internet, the internet of value, the internet of money, and uh, and that's how I am working on this project that is called POAP, Proof of Attendance Protocol, that doesn't require any money, that's for sure, and we will see it. But it's also about crystallizing moments on the blockchain, being able to forge a moment on Ethereum blockchain, and we'll explain that a bit more later. But and creating value because that asset, that POAP, that NFT is only given to the attendant of a certain event, in this case, this conference. So I don't know, Mimi, if I should go with what is a blockchain or
Yeah,
when
I
does it
mean,
started.
of course. I mean, as you know, from an engineering point of view, because you were an engineer, trained as one. You are in the engineering faculty right now. So yeah, how do you see it from your personal kind of viewpoint? The evolution. What is the difference of what you've been working before, and why is it different on blockchain?
Well, it's a great question, and basically, it's pretty simple to reply on a non-technical aspect. Databases, the one that is running on Gmail, the one that it runs on your computer, the one that runs on your phone, the one that runs on Facebook, basically has yes, it has some replication, but there is always some central authority that says what is right and what is wrong, right? In the Gmail case, it's Google that says that email came, that email went off. They can also make it disappear. Also with the phone that I have right now, right? If somehow it get they demagnetized, then the pictures that I might save there and not put not on the cloud, it will be centralized in this position. What is new about this blockchain thing is that there is a network of computers that is much more diverse than data centers, but it's a network of computers that are incentivized by themselves to protect the information, past and future. And so that's what the interesting part, right? Again, it's not a central entity, it's a consensus done by many computers that have the incentive to keep the record straight. And that's what they say, that the distributed ledger, that is this Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the other, maintain and protect by an economic incentive that is always on, that no one has an incentive to erase or to modify the past, and that is available through the internet. Basically, again, it's not available because I have access to my phone, and it's not available because Google or Facebook give me access to the information because they make money out of it. It's because there is a consensus that maintaining that information and having multiple parties, third parties, trustless parties that activate themselves on that consensus. That is the magical part. And whenever you think that you have a database that is publicly maintained, that has a economic incentive to be maintained, and that it doesn't depend on some commercial aspect maintaining that database, then new use case can be brought up, like digital identity. I mean, today there is entities like institutions like countries that give you your identity. There is also digital, or again, Google, Facebook, that give you some form of identity, but that's controlled by them because they make money out of you. The state do not make money out of you, and that's how they give you the identity for free. But again, it's not digital, and it's not maintained by a consensus. And you need to be born in a country. You need to have a picture. You need to have a name and a last name. The digital identity might only be some combination of numbers, and that's your blockchain address, and you can start interacting with all those protocols just by owning your digital identity.
Thank you. I actually, because you mentioned consensus, I just found, I mean, if I'm allowed to kind of jump in with like a visual, I did in one of the talks I did for a different university. I thought it's quite like a fun thing that I use with emojis. So the idea is kind of the easiest idea, I think, to explain blockchain, exactly what Lucas says. It's that the difference between traditional institutions, the example of the bank or Web2 companies like Google or let's say AWS, they have full kind of ownership over whatever we're sending them. So they can just one day shut everything down. And one of the greatest example was that, all these Web3 conversations that we're having on Discord, there was a few weeks ago when everything went down because, Discord was actually hosted on Google Cloud on servers. So like the moment actually one of these Web2 companies decide to, or not decide, but like have some issues and the server goes down, everything goes down. So we can easily lose our emails, our pictures, our data, as Lucas said. But going back to the whole concept of blockchain, I found this amazing example of the Byzantine generals problem. It's a classic maths problem, quite, in the academia, quite ancient, I would say, in a way that, there's a story of this Byzantine castle that there's an enemy army that is trying to plan a siege on. So the only way that this attack would work out is if each of the army that is surrounding the castle is attacking the same time. So why is it so? It's because the castle is protected by 3,000 troops, and each of the leader army that is surrounding has 1,000. So we actually have altogether 5,000 against 3,000 people. So if you have two armies coming in, they would lose against 3,000, and so on. The funny thing about these times is that they couldn't really communicate with each other. So there was no smartphone, so they couldn't like join on a WhatsApp group and say, okay, let's plan an attack right now and all jump all in together. And what they did is that they would send a horse rider to send a message. So let's say we start with general number 1, and he would say, let's attack at 3 a.m. And he sends this message to general number 2, and so on. The only problem happens if the third person is actually a traitor, and instead of passing on the message that we are attacking at 3 a.m., he would send 7 a.m. to the next general. As a result, of course, there's two guys, the fifth and the fourth one would wait till 7 a.m. and the first army and the second one would attack at 3. And of course, they're losing with the castle, and the whole attack doesn't work. And why blockchain works in this in the system, exactly like Lucas says, there is this consensus that any change that we want to do has to be agreed by any other parties in this. And there wouldn't be an option that the information that someone is able, like this guy number 3 here, is trying to change, is not being agreed and accepted by the previous participants in the chain. So the only thing that why we are so obsessed about blockchain, especially in the payments industry, it's because it allows us to kind of get rid of a lot of alterations or fraudulent actions that one entity, because of being in the process, can change. And I think that's kind of interesting thing, like how we can deal with in terms of payments, cross-border transactions, anything related to especially finance. And then also, Lucas, you can share any other examples of other industries taking advantage of that. So we can see like provenance of art ownership. That's something that, historically is very useful in terms of provenance or authenticity for diamonds. That's another application of the blockchain technology. So yeah, I'm giving back to Lucas to comment on this.
Yes, and it's not only about bad actors, right? It's about economic models that can change. Like Patricio, the founder of POAP, talks a lot about what some was called before. I don't know if anyone knows here what's called um, the application where you used to check in on places like Foursquare, and so Foursquare, the business model was about you checking in and putting information like you would do on Facebook and Google, etc. But then they changed the business model and they decided that that was not good enough for them, and then you lose the information. So basically, the consensus at some moment was that you as a user and Foursquare as a service provider, you would have consensus on that checking in was cool. But then the one part that was the service provider decided that that was not good anymore, and then basically they remove all the data, and so you trusted into that entity, you put your check-in and your history, and then for some reason, I mean their reason and that they were entitled to, because that's why you sign when you do next, I want to be a user. Then they decided that it was not interesting anymore, so you've lost the consensus of that being cool or important or valuable. And that's something that Web3 modifies, because you have the true ownership of the data, and not even if the company, even if POAP decides that it's not great to do POAPs anymore, you will keep those POAP because they're yours, they're in your wallet.
Okay. Does it mean that we can slowly move to setting up a wallet and trying to scan our first POAPs? So maybe some introduction. What is proof of attendance? What is that protocol, and why is it different than other protocols?
Sure. So POAP is a very simple to explain protocol. That's proof of attendance protocol. Is about giving an NFT to anyone participating to a memorable event like this course. So it's super fun, super simple. It's one of the most used protocols in Web3. Part of it because it's fun and simple to understand. Part of it because it's free. So you will see that you will collect an NFT, and you don't have to have Ether or Bitcoin or understand what gas fees are, even if you don't want to. If it sounds complicated, it is complicated, but that the good part is that POAP abstract you from that. So that's how it's great. Maybe also you know about POAP since a couple of weeks now. What is the best way for you to define it? Because I have the official speech, of course, and I will certainly say that one way, but how would you define it?
Uh, so unfortunately, the utility that I see best in POAPs is actually in education. It hasn't been used yet, but I'm doing that a bit with the series as a test. So, as a lecturer, sometimes we are having issues with attendance list of students. So especially when we are back now from teaching online to teaching in person, old habits came back with students putting down names of their friends that are not in the classroom. And like sometimes, I mean, I got recently, it was at UCL, some show up to me and said, that it's like less students in the classroom than the names on the A4 sheets. I'm like, I'm aware of that, but like, how do I really verify that? I can't really like go one by one student. And it is quite messy because it's like written down names, and sometimes I can't even read the writing. It's they putting the nicknames on, and I can't find it on the system later. So it's very messy in terms of like how we mark attendance just simply at the university level. And I just saw that with the POAPs, it's so genius in terms of like you can share the QR code, and then everyone is scanning this unique, and the QR code regenerates itself depending on who is scanning it. So you can't rescan from the same device the same QR code, because there would be the message like this has been already scanned. So in that case, like only the people who actually saw the QR code were at the event. It can be also an online event. So even like we are on YouTube, and then people will scan it. I think we had this funny issue last time when I put it on YouTube and we just run out of POAPs at one stage. So I think that that's kind of like the most harsh usage of it, like really double checking who actually was physically or even watched something with her device, and then I can have this proof of attendance that someone actually attended the class. But in terms of just how I was introduced to that in a more like fun way, in terms of like NFT conferences, meeting people, I think it's kind of like getting quite addictive. Like it's just like this notion of collecting, like we used to collect Pokemon cards and all this stuff. It's just like building up, if I go back to the Facebook times, you used to like a lot of artists, websites, DJs, and that kind of defined you as your identity, your online identity. It shows like what kind of music you listen to, what kind of events you go to. It kind of shows who is the person. And I think actually Tinder used that feature at the very beginning. So they would show up the person. I mean, this is very old, but they would show up the profile of the person and mutual interest that the API gathered from these two users. And this is how Tinder defined the matching thing. It's basically whether you guys are following the same page on Facebook, whether you guys are following the same musician, the same DJ, attended the same event, that kind of pops up on Tinder, and that kind of supposed to guide and help people to swipe left or right. And I think similarly right now, it's kind of like building up this Web3 community who are going to various events, and they are in a way collecting these POAPs that are defining their identity. I met recently someone at the event, and like all the POAPs that I saw on his page were so different than mine, because he just went to gaming ones, and I was like, I never saw these events before, but it kind of defined like he is in that gaming community. And I think you have like different POAP people who are more like collecting conferences and stuff. So I think it just has so much kind of interesting utility use cases in the future, not only just events, but I can see that in education as well, and actually in career. So like how do we really verify it? So scientifically, I think someone found recently that 70% of CVs are kind of people are lying in the CVs. And again, this proof of attendance or proof of maybe your work experience can also be verified by, like, if you worked at McKinsey and McKinsey will give you this POAP that you've worked there, it will be super verified. And it's just not just for the employers to see that someone didn't lie in the CV or not, but it's just for the candidates to make sure that people who are competing with you are not winning because they lied in their CVs. Because, at the end of the day, you don't want someone to get the job that you're aspiring to by just putting random names on. And not having verification for that. So, again, I see a lot of different use cases just for this protocol. I don't know if you agree.
Correct. You're pretty much correct, and the idea of POAP is that any memorable event can be a POAP. POAP wants to be the bookmarks of your life, and anything that is worth be remembered 2-3 years after the event should be a POAP, like a marriage, a birthday, anything in between.
Okay, do we want to, okay, let's try to do the POAP after, because I just got a guest in this room. So we can maybe at the end treat our users with the POAP, so setting up a wallet, hopefully. But yeah, I got Ian joining us on time. Hello, Ian.
How you doing?
Good. How was the meeting? I was just scaring everyone that you went to a board meeting, and hopefully you'll join us. Thank you so much for joining at this late time.
It's early for me. I'm in Los Angeles.
Okay. I just thought that you were in Paris because we were operating like 7 p.m. Central Europe. Okay, amazing. How's LA?
It's good. I got in late on Saturday, and just trying to get set up here at home. I'm here like just a few weeks a month. So every time I'm here, I'm like dealing with, like, I didn't have heat until about 20 minutes ago. I mean, and by heat I mean hot water or anything. So but yeah.
Oh yeah, you should like.
It all works again. It all works again.
That's amazing. I'm very jealous. I just came back from New York. Again, meeting a lot of NFT people there. It's kind of like a funny space in terms of like how people are spread out and all this happening in the same time. So yeah, thank you again. I
was at VCon.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So wow.
Yeah, I heard that there was amazing things. I just spoke to Holly from Rarible, and I know Mo went to VCon as well because he was with
Mo was there too. I saw Holly too. I saw her a lot.
Amazing. I mean, I'm so jealous.
And you were giving a lot of POAPs, Ian.
We were giving a lot of POAPs, indeed.
Okay, so we will be giving POAPs at the end of the session as well. So we just had and having our chat with Lucas, just a very brief introduction to the whole concept behind what is blockchain, the consensus mechanism, why do we use that? But of course, I wanted to dig into, your career. We asked Lucas, as how as an engineer, his career has moved from Web 2 to Web 3. And I think you did this shift as well. I think it would be quite useful for our students to really understand, is it scary to after graduation join a Web 3 company? What are the similarities do you see? So yeah, just for anyone who doesn't know, Ian is a Chief Experience Officer at Ledger. I mean, I'll also let you explain what Ledger is and the importance of a hardware wallet. I think it opens up perfectly our conversation of, what is even wallet. And prior to this, Ian was working as a Chief Digital Officer at LVMH. So quite a, someone would say a bold move from like a cushy career. He was also working before at Winamp. That's something I assume our students will not know what is Winamp, but you were also a CEO in Beats and moved later on with the acquisition to Apple Music. So quite big in kind of and art, creative, I would say creative industry, and then straight to hardware wallet. So how was your story? And let's start maybe what are the wallets, and why do we need the hardware wallets?
Well, there's a lot to there. I mean, I think first of all, just to get to this point, from my perspective, it's all part of this journey in terms of where is the world going. That's what I've always been interested in. I found along the way that the impact of technology on culture is particularly interesting to me. I think that as human beings, we like to pretend that we're, these sovereign creatures and technology is our tool, but that's not reality. Whether it's the impact to humanity of air travel, train travel, radio. Without radio, you don't get the Third Reich in the form that we had it. Without the internet, you don't get Donald Trump and Brexit. Without Telegram, you don't get the current, Ukraine conflict. I mean, technology and humanity are always interlinked. And technology and culture are interlinked. We like to pretend that, television is sort of the, is this thing that once was, but even television was this small blip on the radar of 70,000 years of humanity. And so, technology continues to reconnect us in a variety of ways, whether that's connecting humans with, boat travel, railroads, air travel, internet, and Web3 will be another one of those connections. And I think, you know, this setup is really necessary to contextualize what it is you're talking about, because we talk about Web3 as if it's some new thing, and it is, but it's really just part of an evolution. It's part of an evolution of human communication. You know, Web 1.0 was, you know, log in with your username and password. Web 2.0 was log in with Facebook, log in with Google, log in with Twitter, and Web 3.0 is log in with your wallet. And that's incredibly important, because, you know, what we have now is we have this new human invention that's been layered on top of the internet, and that is digital scarcity. You know, so the internet gave us this ability to just connect. You know, it was a revolution of information. We went from information being locked in these limited distribution channels like television and radio. You know, what's on the radio right now? Well, that's what we can get, to what's on YouTube right now, and that's what we can get. Well, that's a pretty big leap. And now, you know, but what we did is we lost ownership along the way, and I was part of that. You know, when I started on the internet,
Napster and Winamp.
Yeah, exactly. You know, yeah, there's only two possible responses to saying I worked at Winamp. One of them is, what the hell's Winamp? And the other one is, oh my God, dude, you worked at Winamp? You know, but it's true. Exactly. You know, when I started, I had a compact disc collection, and now I don't, right? Now, unfortunately, when I started, I owned my identity, and now, you know, Facebook, Google, and a whole bunch of other people own my identity, right? So that's the other thing that's happened, you know, with the internet. You know, we've gone from, you know, you owning your compact discs to Spotify owning your music collection and renting you access to it. And we've gone from you owning your identity to, you know, Google and Facebook owning your identity, and you renting access to the world based on their filter of you, right? Well, this is really what Web3 is the future is, you have your identity and your stuff and your collection and your game tokens and your value, and it's in your wallet, and you take it with you and plug it into whatever environment that you appear in. So then the question is, what's securing that, right? And the hardware that we have, our phones and our computers, were built for Web 2. They were not built for Web 3, and they will not secure your value. It's not an if. It's a fact. They simply will not secure your value until they are rebuilt, ground up with security in mind. So you have to store your Web3 value on Web3 hardware. So I'm sorry, that was a long answer that included Magellan, but Magellan is important in the history of humanity.
No, I really like, you know, the beginning point you started. And I think I was thinking, you know, like, why blockchain is still scary, because I think the user experience, I mean, that's something that you are working on very heavily. It's still quite focused on, you know, the early adopters in terms of, like, you know, the whole process of setting up a wallet, and then the whole educational process of learning to keep your seed phrase, your, you know, not to have you logging back. I'm the person who myself lost the seed phrase from 2017. So I was not educated at that time, but, you know, you have to go through that. And I think, like, because now you can see, like, the users of the technology are quite, like, let's say, tech savvy. So they kind of just early adopters of any new innovation. They like to play around with it. But because I do think that, you know, moving things around, like from the wallet to exchange that, moving that, but it's quite complex. And until the technology itself becomes, you know, just something that we don't really see, the underlying that we don't really see, like, let's say, Wi-Fi or 5G. And then, you know, this is one of the examples that I gave previously, that, you know, when I had to log into internet to use Winamp, for example, then I had to tell my whole family to stop using the fax machine, plug the fax machine to the computer, and then somehow I got internet from that so that I can use the music that I downloaded somehow and play it on Winamp. So that was kind of like for my torrented MP3 files. But nowadays, you just have this magical Wi-Fi it's invisible, and then just things just happen. My mom can just make a WhatsApp call, and she doesn't even know what is running behind it. Is it 5G? Is it, you know, doesn't matter. So I think the whole concept of Web3 adoption, mass adoption, will happen when we will just forget that this is just on blockchain. So, like, any art, provenance, ownership is just automatically safe on some chains, and we're just, you know, consuming whatever we want to consume in our everyday lives. But this is kind of running. And I think, similarly, like, as I mentioned before, cross-border payments, right now it takes time, it takes 5 hours. If you send something, it takes commission from all of this institution. But, the moment I can send instantly money abroad, without any company really like verifying or doing this check. And I really don't care if it's on blockchain or not, or on Stripe or whatever, or PayPal. It's just like, as long as it goes instantly and safely, I'm happy that it's on blockchain. So I think that kind of relates a lot of the mass adoption. I don't know what's your view on that.
I think you're exactly right. And I think that is exactly the way to think about it. You're right that doing audio or video on a computer in 1998, 99, even 2001, 2002 was really difficult, very tenuous. And you're right, you had to care, is this an MP3 file or a WMA file or an OGG Vorbis file? And right now, when you hit play on Apple Music and you hit play on Spotify, they are actually different file formats, but you don't know and you don't care. Yeah. Right, to your point, where in the future, but I think that the thing is that I think the analogy is exactly correct. It's because there was magic to be excited about, right? There was, we knew in those days that music would move to subscription. We knew it. And by the way, it was an extremely unpopular view. Everyone in the music business in 2000, 2001, they told me, we're going to sell compact discs forever. And then it was, no, we're going to sell 99-cent downloads forever, right? Or $8.99 digital albums, right? It wasn't until really 2009, 2010, and Spotify came along in really 2008, 2009. You needed the iPhone, you needed Spotify, you needed, frankly, the record industry to be on its knees because it had lost half of its value, right? Before it got to where we are today. And so all of these same things will happen in this space. To your point, the user experience will get better. The technology will get better. We used to talk about, Spotify originally, just to continue with the analogy, originally Spotify was a P2P company, right? And is Spotify a P2P company today? Who cares? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. And to your point, like, will the digital value company of the future be a blockchain company? That will be below the bar for a normal customer, right? Now, there is something that's very real and very important though, and that is the customer will have digital sovereignty. They will have digital ownership and they will have self-custody, right? So right now, if we all decided to go to the bank and withdraw our money at the same time, there's not enough money for all of that to happen. Right. Yeah, the bank does not have enough money for all of us to go take our money out of it.
They're increasing the percentage, but it's still like 60% after 2008 or something. It was 40 before. Now there's this Basel II that hasn't been implemented still. And I think it's going like slowly up, but it's still never 100%.
The blockchain, or in the Bitcoin that I have here, is mine. There is no run on the bank possible. It is mine. And that is the future as well. And this is what I say, like, we can talk about, yes, the user experience will get better. Absolutely. And that is exactly right. It must. And yes, a lot of these things, like sort of the technological sides of it, will disappear. Which chain is it on? Is it proof of work? Is it proof of stake? What's the block size? Whatever. A lot of that stuff will be below the line. But what will be there is that there will be digital scarcity. Consumers will have digital ownership and digital sovereignty, and they will hold that value in self-custody. Those are the things you can count on being true in the future. And the other thing that you can count on is that will not be possible on the kind of device that you have in your hand today. This device will be rebuilt with security in mind to support the use case that I just laid out there. I think these are things that are irrevocable facts. And yes, we have a lot of work to do to get there. It's 1998, 99. The iPhone came in 2008. That's how much work we all have, to get there. And that's fine. I know what I was, doing in 2001, same thing I was doing in 1998, same thing I was doing in 2005, same thing I was doing in 2009. Like, this is a long journey. We chip away at it, over the years, and it just goes and goes and goes and goes. And ultimately we get Donald Trump and Brexit. So we have that to look forward to.
You've been through, as you mentioned, like through all of this changes. And it's quite, for me, difficult to explain. I just got an Instagram message from a fan, and they're like, do you really prefer digital? I mean, this is in terms of art. So because you mentioned about art and technology, how do we explain that? Like, you know, the main question, like, what is the point of having ownership of an asset that everyone can right click and save anyway?
You know, I'll be honest with you. I don't think we need to explain it. You know, it's like saying, it's like some friend calling me and saying, like, do you really like rap music? Like, what do I have to convince them that maybe they should like rap music? I don't. They can eat it. I don't care. You know, and by the way, I mean, you know, 10 years from now, there won't be a 25-year-old, you know, in the Western world who hasn't played Minecraft. And those people aren't going to ask that question.
Yeah.
Right. So the people that don't understand digital art, here's what I would say to them. Eventually you'll be dead. That's what I'll say. I honestly don't care. You know, the reality is that, you know, when, and art is like this, by the way, you know, people who can identify the art of yesterday are very poorly placed to identify the art of tomorrow. And that's been true for thousands of years. And it won't be any less true today than it was 100 years ago. You know, and you know, time has a way of telling us what art is, you know, much more than art critics do. So, you know, I think that when you have someone who has a craft and they've spent years honing that craft and they make something that others find beauty in, and those two people have a value exchange, that's called art. I don't really give a shit if you like it or not, or if I like it or not. You know, that's called art. I spent Saturday with Snowfro and Tyler Hobbs.
Yeah.
And if you know, if some, you know, snooty person or just like lackey idiot wants to tell me that what they do isn't art, honestly, I don't think they should do it to my face. I'm serious. They might get punched.
Yes. Eric Snowfro just came to my panel last week at St. Martin's. So kind of
these guys are living greats.
Yeah.
It's like coming face to face with Picasso.
Yeah, and then I came to New York to his show. That was before he went to VCon. And it's like, oh my God, I was just like literally standing next to the man and the coat behind on the wall. And that was, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of discussion.
By the way, something important to know. Tyler Hobbs, direct quote from Tyler Hobbs. I like art. I like skateboarding more. Anyway, that made my entire weekend.
Oh, wow. Okay. Because I was asking him to actually nominate one of the generative artists for one of the coming exhibitions. And Tyler actually chose Zan Khan, which is an FX hash artist. So it's quite exciting to see that he's kind of also promoting, let's say, smaller artists.
It? That sounds like Alpha. Who was it?
Michael Zan Khan. I can send you later. Yeah. So Tyler is a fan of his work, but we can have a big discussion about generative art. I think that's not for this. I mean, you guys can let me know later if that's for this faculty, because we are more into engineering, so the tech part. But I think, you know, a lot of students will be interested. You know, I have these questions from both universities as well. It's just, you know, when you graduate, I can see, like, you know, last year there was none of my students who actually were considering even doing a dissertation or research on, let's say, Coinbase, or thinking about a career at, you know, the other university, the fashion one, is basically the Fabricam, the Materialize, or even Ledger. And then you made that move. I don't know, what would you say to some? Of course, they are more tech savvy. They are very intrigued and curious about this space. Would you do the classical, you know, advice that, like, go to consulting and McKinsey, or, you know, why not? Why don't you join a Web3 company and experience the space? How's your view on that?
Well, I mean, with the caveat that I might be a really bad person to ask, because I'm the person that dropped out of grad school to go on tour with the Beastie Boys. But I wouldn't know how to do something classical. It wouldn't interest me. I wouldn't know how to do it. I've never had a job. I'll never have a job. I think that you follow mentors and you follow passions. I mean, especially if you're technical, you have a lot of options, right? I also think that you know, from my perspective, you know, my overall advice to anyone, what I wish I would have learned earlier in my life, is that you are what you do. And so you have to do what you want to be. You are how you spend your time, right? So if you want to be super good at watching Netflix, then you should watch a lot of Netflix, right? If you want to be a generative artist, then you should create generative art. If you want to be a great guitar player, then you should play a lot of guitar. If I want to speak better French, I should speak more French, right? It's really that simple. This is why I haven't watched television or movies since 1989. I don't go to stupid parties. I spend my time doing things that are in line with my values and the things that I want to be. And I try not to waste time. That's not to say that I'm efficient. I still smoke weed and ride skateboards because that's in line with my values personally. And I think that, that's exactly what people should do. And I think, you're very lucky if you have, technical ability, because you really do have a lot of choice. So people who are prioritizing money and, prioritizing career, I mean, I'm glad somebody does it. It's not me. I don't know how to do it. I prioritize, what motivates me idealistically, and mentorship. My entire career is a series of mentors, really great mentors, who, have just taught me things that I couldn't have learned myself, things I couldn't have learned in school. Whether that was, people like, the Beastie Boys and Dr. Dre and Trent Reznor, or people like Jimmy Iovine and Ben Arnault, and currently, Pascal Gauthier and Charles Guillemet and many others. I think even for me, LVMH was really a great way for me to make a transition from the world of digital music to something broader. And I really feel like I got an MBA there, because I was able to get a study on a bunch of brands that I didn't know anything about. And now I'm still on the board at Dr. Martens, which I love, and it gives me another view into a publicly listed company in the UK, which I've never been a part of before, and I'm happy to be. So I think that really I mean, prioritize learning, I guess, is the other thing. But also, we all have different strengths. When I do that kind of strength finder activity, the first thing it tells me is that I'm a learner, which makes perfect sense. And it's also why I don't watch Marvel movies. For me, there's nothing to learn from a Marvel movie. I'd rather read a book. Okay, well, it makes sense. I'm a learner, so I'd rather read a book. It makes sense. Okay. So, I mean, I think it's different for different people as well, but that's me, which is the only thing I can really share with any authority.
Yeah, I also agree. I think that actually for any students, it's, I mean, there is this direction that you need to focus on one thing and then choose. But I think that the world is changing so fast that, as I mentioned also before you came in, that I was trained in very ancient languages like SQL. And, we're already like 3 rounds after that. And now I completely, I should actually be doing Rust right now because of Web3. But the point is that, if you are, as you say, trained as a tech person, it's just so easy to switch and then to learn and to keep like jumping through to a next kind of technology that you could actually
I think you bring up another important point that your students might enjoy, and that is that when I studied computer science in the early 90s, it was very much a science. Now it's much more of an applied science, right? And if you look at, like what Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre did at USC, where they created a school around arts and sciences, they were really trying to create like a Steve Jobs school. How do you make someone that has this balance of creativity and science? And then if you look at someone like Tyler or Snowfro, that's who these guys are. They're kind of an extreme example of it. But I think that what I've heard from investors, it's not my personal opinion, from investors, is that, and I think we know this, you see this kind of general trend where just coding can be outsourced, to all kinds of places. But kind of creative coding and problem solving, and really, tying threads together to see like, oh, if I put A, B, C, and D together, I get something else. That's really where you can add a lot of value and actually be early. I see that too, because I look at, I see kind of right now creative applications of cryptography, in fact, which is, when you think about it, like, that's quite interesting. I mean, 10 years ago you might have been really basically Neil Stephensons to say that there are creative applications of cryptography, but today there clearly are. And I think that that's what I would encourage the students to look for, is to try to have that sort of balance of a technical skill. And I think a deeply technical skill, actually. It's not bad to, go on Block Geeks and study how to make smart contracts, or study cryptography. etc. But also think about creativity. And I was just reading a book about artificial intelligence and creativity, and I find it, I find it personally quite interesting. But I can also see how it would be a real competitive advantage for a young person who is entering the workforce to have that combination of skills.
It's music to our ears, because you are literally so this video will be published on the Dutch School of Software Design and Engineering. So it's a collaboration between engineering part at Imperial and the design part from Royal College of Art. So you have
find the name of that book, just in case you're.
Please, yeah, I do drop it in the YouTube, because
I find it really quickly, because I was just finding it yesterday for a friend. It is called. Oh shoot! Sorry, I'm looking in the wrong Amazon account. Welcome to technology. American Amazon versus French Amazon. Command. The book is called The Artist in the Machine.
Oh wow! Okay.
The subtitle is The World of AI-Powered Creativity by Arthur I. Miller.
Okay, I'll drop that in the YouTube.
It's just something I'm reading at the moment that's relevant. There are many people writing on the topic, of course.
There is, and I do want to find like a very, I don't know, intellectually convincing view, because sometimes just something that AI creates, I am not really convinced that you can say it's art. It's just like there needs to be an extra layer of this creative person who is choosing actually what output the AI is doing, or not just like turning things and say, hey, this is art. Because so yeah, I mean, I'm very like sensitive about the whole concept of coder artist, unless it is a real coder artist. I mean, you have different layers of that, and but it's just because I'm representing the art world, and it's quite just heartbreaking for us.
I actually have a Bachelor of Arts in Computer Science from 1994, which was not a very sought after degree in those days. It was really it was almost like, you almost got a computer science degree, right? But and by the way, I mean, I'm definitely not an artist. I've always been the executive producer sitting next to the artist, hearing what it was they were trying to accomplish and then helping them accomplish it. But I think that I've done that well, and I really like that role. I don't need to take the role as the artist, and I'm also not going to be like the CTO and his team at Ledger, who are far more capable technically than me, and presenting papers at Black Hat in Vegas. I'm very happy to be that person that sits in the middle. So that's really my message to the students as well, is just remember that all of these things are necessary: the creative person, the deeply technical person, the person that bridges those two worlds. And by the way, the HR person, the legal person, the finance person, the marketing people, like these are, it really takes, it takes a lot of different skills working toward a common goal to build a company, and they're all equally valid.
We'll see more and more examples of this, especially in the space. I was speaking to someone, especially now you have a lot of game designers in fashion companies kind of, having to collaborate together. So like my department is specifically looking into multidisciplinary collaboration. And you had previous example, but I think blockchain is like the best playground to study that, because this is exactly when you have like this crazy smart contract developers working together with some product people and then fashion designers, and it's a minefield, and I think it's just going to be very exciting to see. Yeah, it's
I don't know if you have some time to discuss something that we never had a chance, that is smart contracts. I don't know, maybe the field. I mean, and I think it's a very complex subject to enter like in a light way, but saying that the smart contracts are like rules that are applied by this code, and security or insurance or streaming value that could emerge from this. That's super interesting. And from an engineering point of view, and where you transmit the if else of the value, that for me it's also super interesting. Or the royalties, right? The concept of royalty that is enforced automatically, and how that could allow you to put more or less, or distribute your value in a different way, because you know that this code is written, and then the blockchain itself will be able to enforce that. And that's, I mean, I don't really know what it means yet, but I know it sounds fucking amazing.
I think that the the description that I like best of what is Ethereum as an example is that it's a world computer. And I think the notion that you can write code and deploy it and deploy code that will outlive us, which is kind of effectively true, is mind-boggling. It's also a little scary, to be honest. I don't think it's another thing to I think keep in mind is that technology is not inherently good or bad. That's like asking if fire is good or bad. All of these things, technology are just tools. NFT is just a primitive, the same way that a website is a primitive. They'll be used for art and they will be used for evil. They will be used to build communities and they will be used to scam and defraud people equally, because they are just primitives. They are just tools. Yeah. A sharp blade is a tool that can feed your family or it can kill your family. And I think that, smart contract is a new tool, and it's basically a world computer that you can write code, deploy code, and the network will execute and kind of guarantee that code deployment for you. Also, that code will have bugs, just like code, like all code does. So I think that, I completely agree with you. It's an incredible human invention. And I'm just trying to present it as exactly that, as a balanced view, because it can do exactly what you said. It already does. Look, if you go buy an MP cause from Art Blocks right now, which if you can afford it, you should do. 25% of that will automatically be distributed to the hospital of Northwestern University for cancer research, automatically, immediately.
That's a smart contract use case.
Because the smart contract says so. MP cause will get 75%. Well, first of all, it's a secondary market. So the primary person will get, the primary sale. A percentage of that will go back, to the platform Art Blocks, the artist MP cause. And MP cause has chosen the hospital at Northwestern University, where his mom is receiving cancer treatment, as the beneficiary of 25% of his royalties. And that all happens, on chain, without any accountant looking at it. And that's what you're describing. And I'm describing a really beautiful use case of it. That's you buying a piece of art, which is probably going to go up in value tremendously over the next 50 years, because he's one of the great artists of our time. And, your money immediately benefiting, people who are in need immediately. So, there's an example of the good use case, right? But that's just those are just rails, right? And you could do anything with those rails. If instead you wanted to fund Al Qaeda with that money, you could. And that's technology.
Yeah, and I think we can give lots of examples. I mean, because I do hear about questions about Al Qaeda funding or any frauds and stuff. But I just realized when you do that with text messages, people are doing fraudulent stuff.
And even cash, right? Yeah. Cash dollars also.
Yeah, so I think it's very just exciting to, as I think Ledger at the other session, Mo said, it's all about, how do we educate ourselves about this new space and then just basically be cautious and have common sense. I am aware of the time. We are already here 1 hour. I'm not sure if Jana, I know you're busy, so feel free to drop up whenever you have to. I will just share maybe the presentation for the POAP. This is something I promised.
Love POAP. And we did give away tons of them over the weekend. But I apologize. I do need to jump to something else. It's really great to be with you. I hope it's helpful to your students. Yeah. Again, you are what you do.
Thank you so much.
Do what you want to be.
Ian, I will send the POAP through DM on Twitter, because actually you're here.
Okay. Yeah, I want.
You need to get one. Right. Yeah. Thank you so much.
I want. All right, guys. I'll see you soon. Bye. Ciao. Thank you.
Okay, so we're back to something that I promised half an hour ago.
Yes.
Lucas, take over, please, if you want to.
Yes, no, but I want this to also to be like some form of, feedback. So the students here should understand that we're giving them the intuition on how to build their Web3 identity.
I think actually some of the people that I know will so this is the easiest way to create a wallet. You just download. We don't have the link directly, but I can just go to App Store.
Not normally, if you click on download, normally it is.
Yeah, but I'm not sharing that. So I think I'm just sharing my screen. So I think people just have to go to App Store and then download the Rainbow app.
That is correct. Can we have some feedback to know if they do or if they have found any issue?
Let me try to see if I can open that. Yeah, do let us know if you managed to download Rainbow. But I think we did that previously with my other students. So I think we can
So we
just
can
wait a few
we can
minutes.
just do or we can do with the email, and then they can create their Rainbow wallet and then migrate with the instruction on the email. It's like you want.
Okay, I can share as well. So the next one, how do I do it? Yeah, I need to screw it like this. This is the jump about ledger, but I think we can skip this part.
Yes, this is the part where you have to understand, like Ian said, that the Rainbow wallet you get on a Web 2 device, and it's not prepared for that. But then you can have a ledger that is a Web 3 device that will surely and secure your assets in a better way than the Rainbow.
And then, yep, this is how you can get an address of your wallet. So once you download the Rainbow, you can create a wallet and copy the address.
Exactly, because in the next step, we'll just scan a QR code, and then you will have to just paste this new address that you got with your Ethereum blockchain Rainbow wallet.
I'll leave 1 minute for that. And then, yeah, once you copied that address, I think we can move to the POAP itself, which is this. I don't know why.
Yes, so you just have to scan it. I will do it also. Scan it.
I actually did it already, so I think it will show that can I put it in a different wallet if I have to? Oh, yeah.
Yes, you can. I mean, exactly. So you scan it and you put your Ethereum address or email. Also, it works with email, and then it just works.
Cool. I can always share that if we can open this POAP to the people who register to the event for this evening. And then, yeah, we'll close that. And I think there is a limited number of the POAPs that can be grabbed. We are actually quite late with our time, so I'll stop sharing my screen. It's just white. Okay. I love these POAPs. They're just blinking GIFs. Cool. Let's wrap up. I'd like to thank Lucas very much for being a guest speaker today with us. Thanks for also supporting us with the POAPs. We will have POAPs at the next talks as well. Next lecture will be with Nemil, head of crypto from Coinbase, and we'll have some other talks as well. And for a culmination of the series, there will be an exhibition outside Imperial College London together with the Exhibition Road Festival. So different organizations like V&A Museum, Science Museum, Natural History Museum collaborating together to showcase some stuff. And we also will have, fingers crossed you see outside the building something crazy with a POAP that you can also collect just from being at the exhibition. So yeah, thank you, Lucas, again. I actually will see you next week in Paris.
Thank you very much, everyone. And if you have any doubt, contact Mimi or myself in order to have the POAP. Thank you very much.
Thanks.